Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Art of Inspired Selling. It was a wonderful weekend. I hope everybody enjoyed their weekend, and you're joining us here today to find out some more tips that will help you not just survive in the new normal, but actually to thrive. And today I'm bringing on a guest, keeping in with my series on personal branding. Her name is Dina Schmid. And I'm going to read a little bit, as I do, about her, which you can find on her website, which is queencityetiquette.com. Our guest today is Dina Schmid. And in addition to being a certified etiquette consultant, Ms. Schmid has a degree in chemical engineering from Carnegie Mellon University. She's married and the mother of 3 teenagers. We'll have to ask her when she comes back on how old they are today. Ms. Schmid has always enjoyed working with young people. She was a Girl Scout leader. She stays active in her community and she gives, right? And what caught my attention was that not only she's a zony peeps, just like me, she also has a big love for France, which I'm hoping to go back to live there soon. So let's bring her on. Let's talk to her. Let's find out what wisdom she's going to deliver today to help you build that incredible personal brand and help you stand out from the crowd. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in as soon as her camera gets great. Let's see. There you are. Dina, how can we welcome you today? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're seated today.
I am seated in Cincinnati, Ohio, coming to you from a windowless basement.
Cincinnati. Yes. And so as with almost all of my guests, right, I find them through LinkedIn, as I did with Dina. But, we have so much in common, right? We talked a little bit about both being from Arizona. She went to Corona
del Sol.
Yes, Corona, which my best friend's kids, if I would have stayed in Arizona, my kids would have gone there too. And then, while I was reading your bio and finding more out about you, I found that we both have that love of France. So, yeah. Well, let's dig into that too. So as, all guests on the show, tell me, Dina, what inspires you? Like, what inspires you to get up in the morning, to keep going, to keep at it? How long have you been in business for yourself?
I have been in business with the etiquette business now for about 3.5 years.
Okay.
Doing just the etiquette business. And as part of that, I also do public speaking coaching as well.
Okay. So what inspires you? What drives you? Tell us about that.
Well, I actually have a quote right there. I have a bulletin board in view, and I have a quote from Maya Angelou that is in there that
I love her. So anything you're about to say is going to be goosebumpy. Let's hear it.
And this quote, I had to put it there because it's just one that has stuck with me since I first heard it. And I'll read it. It says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel."
Yes.
And I just love that quote because it's that impression that you want to leave on people. You want them to remember you and you want them to have those good feelings when they remember you. And I feel
Absolutely.
that etiquette can really help with that as well.
Yes. And I'm going to do a little mommy brag here because my kids, since they were little, right, I worked with them on knife and fork placement. They cannot sit at my kitchen table without a placemat, a napkin on their lap, a knife and fork. And I've even had my older son say, "Mom, I went to dinner with some friends and the girls were complimenting me on my table manners."
That's awesome. I love that story. You brag away when it comes to stories like that.
It's so important, and we're not today. Hey peeps, we're not going to talk about table manners today, but now that I'm back in the dating game, when you look at some guys too, or even a business dinner, and they're the kind that lean on the table and they shovel food in their mouth like this. Right. It's so hard. I bet it's even worse for you. I want to just throw something across the table from them and go, "Get your elbow off the table and quit shoveling the food in your mouth like it's your last meal."
Right. So, I tell people, you don't want to be the reason I'm called in to do a team building activity for your group, because I can spot it. I'll go in and I will see there'll be a guy, he'll take his fork and he'll stick it in his meat and then he'll take his knife and he's holding it with his whole hand and, doing
the
that.
table shaking.
Cutting, yeah. And I look at them and I'm like, okay, you're the reason why your boss called me in to do this training. So I tell people you don't want to be that person.
Yes, there's so much. Yeah, so maybe we will have one in the future because there's a few etiquette people I know. Maybe we'll have a whole group of them, right? Talking about eating with your mouth full and spitting food all over, or drinking too much at the table on a business dinner, or not drinking and still acting like an idiot. I mean, there's so many things. So, so tell us a little bit about your business, how you got started, what do you enjoy most about it, and then what you're going to talk to the audience about today.
Okay. So as I said earlier, I started my business about 3.5 years ago. I started because there was no one offering etiquette classes for children in my area. And I had wanted to enroll my children. I'd been trying to instill etiquette in them, but I knew that someone else reinforcing me would probably be beneficial.
For sure, right? Yeah.
When I couldn't find the classes, I decided that maybe that was the opportunity for me. So I went through a certification program down with a woman in the South at the American Schools Protocol. I call it Etiquette Boot Camp. And 5 days later, 2 4-inch binders worth of material and a final exam passing grade, I became a certified etiquette instructor and a consultant. And I went into business teaching classes to people of various ages. What I have found that I really like the most is the interaction with people. I like a lot of the small group setting classes that I'm doing, and I've ended up morphing a little bit as we've gone through this pandemic in offering more and more content online. I originally started out offering classes only in person, but recently everything for everyone had to switch to online. And I was even able to take some of my corporate development programs. I do some classes through some local universities and even offer those in a virtual workshop format. So
okay, congrats on pivoting.
Thank you. Yes. So that was good. And that's actually some of the content that I'm going to be talking about and sharing here. I do a lot with how business etiquette can really impact how people perceive you, as well as the other aspects, such as even your appearance, making a first impression. All of that goes into creating your personal brand. Yes. And so that's the kind of stuff that I think is really important and can really help people feel confident when they go into a variety of situations.
All right. So let's check. We don't have any questions that I see coming in on the chat. Let's hope that we're live everywhere. I guess we could just share. I can share my screen and we can talk about now you guys. There's a link in the description. And for those of you that might be listening later on the podcast, we'll make sure that there's a link in the comment section so that you can download the handout that we're going to talk about. So let me share my screen. Let me go off the spotlight for just a second. All right. Let me go to the first. There's a little bio about you.
Yeah.
Oh, before we get into this, the most exciting part that we were going to talk, I'll give people some time in case they're wanting to download this. What took you to France?
Yes, my husband had the opportunity to work in France for a period of time. So we decided it was a good opportunity to take advantage of. Back in 2010, moved the family over to France and we lived there for 3.5 years.
Wow. And did your kids learn how to speak French while they were there?
We went sink or swim. We enrolled them into French public schools.
Oh my gosh. See, my little Jordan and I were talking about moving to France now, and he's nervous. He's really nervous about it, but he wants to be a chef. And so he's done all the research and about Le Cordon Bleu, and he knows the importance of being able to speak French. So stay tuned, people who may be broadcasting live from France in the near future. That would
be awesome. Yes.
All right. So 2 Zonies who love France. I mean, come on, we must have been drinking the same water at the same time. And we're in personal branding. I mean, wow, I found my tribe here.
There we go.
All right, let's get back to the spreadsheet. Tell us a little bit, or not spreadsheet, the handout. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to walk us through today.
So I'm going to walk through a worksheet here that can help you really visualize and get a good picture of your personal brand and what image you're going to project to others.
Okay.
And I like to talk about personal brand in terms of a Jeff Bezos quote. I don't know if you've heard this one before, where he has said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
It is. It's your lasting impression, right? For sure.
It is. It's that lasting impression. And a lot of people think of a first impression as far as just appearance, and that is part of it. But in business, we don't always interact in person or in a way that people can see us for the first time. It might be by email, it might be by phone. And we really need to think about all the ways we are interacting with people and making sure we have a clear vision that drives that interaction, because we don't want to leave a wrong impression.
Not at all. Not at all. So let's look at your first question here. I want people to describe me as.
Yes. And I always start with that one. I want people to describe me as, and everyone who is listening and filling this out needs to pick a handful of positive adjectives and or phrases that they're going to use when they're creating this image, how they want people to describe them. And in the worksheet, I did include a second page that has a list of example words that can be chosen. There are honestly no right or wrong answers on this. And I've worked with many, many, many people with this. And I would say that no two people have ever picked the exact same set of adjectives.
Okay.
It's really a personal choice.
Do you find that sometimes these adjectives are in line with personal values? I mean, a little?
A lot of times they are. There's usually one or two adjectives that are more value oriented. People might want to be seen as trustworthy, and I think that's a value. Loyal is a value as well. But then there are some other ones that aren't necessarily values, but are more of that projected image. You could say zany is an adjective that you want people to see you as, or colorful. And that might not necessarily reflect a value, but yes, there's definitely a value component to this for sure.
Great. Okay, so let me go back up. So I want people to describe me as, and then the next one.
Yes, and what I would say for anyone who writes those adjectives and phrases down is to take some time and actually say them out loud.
Oh, good.
I am trustworthy, or I am unique. Whatever it is that they are picking, say it out loud and hear yourself say it. I think that's an important step in this.
Yeah, maybe into the mirror, right? Or even record it.
Yeah. Write it down. You can make word art. There are lots of websites that will
and apps. I have one. Absolutely.
Yes, I actually have my word art. I remember I mentioned that bulletin board behind. I have mine. I have my words there that will inspire me and also keep me focused.
Mine are over here.
Okay. Yes.
So I have mine too.
Yes. So I recommend doing that because I think that's a very useful tool to have as a reminder. And then I want to talk a little bit about the appearance and making a great first impression. As I said, it's not always an in-person first impression anymore. And so you really need to think about that. And I tell people who are working primarily by electronic communication, make sure your grammar and your spelling are right, because that can give a very negative impression.
Yes. And it's important if you're working in a field of, and grammar would be really important. Like maybe if you're a construction or painter or something where people didn't have the grammar as an expectation, but certainly like I have a friend that's watching here, right? That's a principal. I mean, she's going to need to make sure that the words that she's putting out or writing in something have correct grammar, right? And are uplifting and
Yes. And I do work with a lot of non-native speakers, and I understand they may not be able to always get the grammar correct. but I always tell them, use the words you know. You're better off using a limited vocabulary and using it correctly than trying to stretch yourself and use fancy words and use them incorrectly.
Mm-hmm. Good. That's a good tip. That's a good tip. So let's talk a little bit about the signature outfit.
Yes. So let's get into that. I like to break it down into finding clothes that work for your function. They are going to fit. They are going to flatter, and you have the right finish. I like to talk about it in terms of F's.
Okay.
And creating a signature outfit can benefit you in multiple ways. One of the ways is that you are consistent in the image you're projecting. And the other one is it just makes it easier to get dressed in the morning if you know what you're going for. I will admit, I decided a while ago that I was going to stop trying to mix so many different colors. While I don't have a complete capsule wardrobe, I got rid of anything that wasn't a black bottom. I only have black pants and black skirts. That's part of my signature outfit now. And I wear primarily 3 colors on top. I have teal, green, and rust. And I'm going to get into why I've picked those colors in a little bit.
Okay.
And then I wear necklaces as part of the finish. So I like to encourage people to create that signature outfit that you can put on and people will go, oh, yeah, that's her. So if you're doing Facebook Lives or you are doing a photo shoot and you have pictures on your website, you're consistent in your image, and people like that familiarity. We know that people do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And there's a little bit of familiarity with seeing someone in similar types of outfits all the time.
And that's one thing I've been thinking about with doing these lives is so intentionally I'm dressing kind of dull because these live streams aren't about me. The live stream is about focusing on my guest. So I don't want to have something that's outlandish or really loud and crazy because I don't want to be my background is distracting enough, right? I don't want my clothes to be distracting or my hair flying around when I want folks to focus on you. So that's kind of a technique I've been using is solid.
That's a good example there of showing up consistently as well. Yes.
Okay. What's next?
So that is about the signature outfit. And then one of the things within there is also making sure you pick out colors that flatter you. And
have you had your color done before?
I have not had a professional do my colors, but I have enough knowledge in this area that I know that I am the autumn of the 4. And then there's even within the 12 seasons. Mm-hmm. And actually this week on my Facebook page, I am going through a little bit every day of instruction on that because a lot of us have turned to online shopping and it can be really hard to have a high success rate with the items you're ordering. So I'm going through this so people can get an idea of how to have more success. You can also use the same process for picking out your signature outfit.
Oh, great. So I think we put in the notes where people could find you live or so they could find you. So I had in Arizona, as a matter of fact, from this woman whose name is Fan Cheng. She came over and did my color. And it was really interesting. It's all in with the branding and personal branding and brand archetype. I'm jewel tones.
Okay.
But look at around me. My car is a jewel tone, everything around. And then my soft colors are some soft pinks and some rose golds. And so I really live on brand, not really intentionally, but it's just from within. It's interesting.
Yeah. So, oftentimes we just gravitate towards the colors that make us feel and look better naturally.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk next. Conversations, is that what's next?
Yeah, so conversations and presentations. Again, think about that impression you want to leave. If you are someone who wants to be seen as very energetic, well, when you get out there and you're going to be presenting, you better be like this. You better not.
A-game, right?
Exactly. You better not be standing there and presenting like this. I don't know if you've ever seen that person who just freezes and they're like, I'm very passionate about what I do. Well, they're not necessarily presenting an image of someone who's passionate.
That takes me back to my days of a genetics professor that I had. And I think she had a microphone back then. I don't remember because it was so long ago, but she talked, her head was down. Like, I don't think she ever really looked at us ever. And it was, and you know what? I probably don't even remember genetics. I mainly remember that she never made eye contact with the class. Right. And then I had, I think, another biochem guy who would stir his coffee and slurp the whole time during class. So maybe it's just my scientific background.
And when the slurping probably made you uncomfortable, yes. We go back to my inspirational quote, what do you remember?
Yeah.
That's what you remember is that slurping, and it makes you uncomfortable. Yes.
Yes. So super important, right? Super important. But I think also we grow with those things. And so I wouldn't want somebody to be so concerned about their intonation in their voice or saying and pausing too many times. Just record yourself and acknowledge it, and then next time just be cognizant of maybe saying one less time or something. Right? It's a journey.
Yes, and I'm going to give you an example here of someone who is wildly popular as a speaker. You may have heard of her. And has a really high count per minute of crutch words, such as and that's Brene Brown. I don't know if you've ever seen any of her videos.
I have, but I don't think I paid attention to them, right?
You haven't noticed, right? Because her message and her delivery are so on point that you actually overlook all the time she says Only if you're a public speaking coach do you notice the number of times she says I'm telling you that you don't have to really worry about those things as much as you think. Like you said, record yourself and just get over it, but make sure instead that overall impression is there, because that's what matters most.
And consistency. You just said that as well. Yeah. So let's talk about your online presence, which in my own words, that would be creating your compelling digital footprint, right? So what is your online presence and what does it say about you?
Right. And you need to be consistent with this as well. Think about what people are taking away from it. If you are someone who is going to want to be seen as very professional and perhaps traditional, then you're probably not going to be wanting to share a lot of crazy memes on your Facebook, and have it be on a public when you're sharing, who's visible to it. I know people are always surprised. I talk to people who are trying to get a job, and like I said, I go into universities and I tell them, people are searching for you when you're applying for a job, or perhaps they want to use you as a consultant. They're going to search for you online, and what they see is going to impact them positively as well as negatively. If you are someone who's using a lot of foul language, that could be part of your personal brand. I'm not saying that's wrong, but recognize that some people are going to search it, see that language, and perhaps they are searching for someone who's a little more conservative, so they aren't going to choose you. You just have to be consistent.
Yep. And so with my foul language and my crazy memes, we know that I'm not going to be good for conservative company.
Right. But I'm saying that's your personal brand.
Yes.
I don't think that's wrong. It's just a matter of who is your ideal client, and are you attracting them with your personal brand?
Yes. Yes, it's so important. Oh, body language now. Let's talk about, Dina, I haven't had any professional body language consulting. And so I do speak at times. Tell us about that. Tell us about things that we should think about, using our hands too much or holding a pencil. Like what are some really key body language and facial expressions to think about?
Well, the key here is, again, what image are you trying to project? But the biggest one that I tell people is to stay open. You want to make sure that you are not closed up, your shoulders aren't rolling in, and that happens if you were to cross your arms. I think everybody knows crossing your arms during a presentation is a very defensive move, and that is blocking you off from the audience. So you really want to stay open. You don't have to have perfect posture and be rigid, because that's not going to work as well. You want to make sure your feet are firmly planted on the ground so that you feel free to have a little bit of movement. And depending on how kinetic of a person you are, you may have a lot of movement. There are some people that get their energy, I'm one of them, from moving. You'll see me move my hands a lot because that keeps me energized. And I think you really have to develop your own style. I think it's also important that you control your facial expressions. I don't know if you ever saw the Netflix show You. There was a character in the first season who made a comment about having a special type of facial autism. She couldn't hide what was on her face. And you could see every reaction. Sometimes that's good. Other times it's bad. And the reason it can be really bad and when you're speaking is if it shows that you've made a mistake.
Oh, yes.
If you are saying something and you realize, I didn't mean to say that, and you catch yourself with that facial expression, you've just given away that you've made a mistake, and probably nobody would have ever known.
So I have a question. Why is it that politicians are taught to do this whole...
The politician, I call it the presidential point.
Yes.
Okay, there's a specific reason for that, and that is because in different cultures, pointing with your finger is rude, and you never want to point towards someone else. You also never want to point towards yourself either. It looks weird. But you can't do a fist, because a fist is a sign of aggression. Good. So if I were to be using my fist, that wouldn't be right. 2 fingers is a gun for some people. 1 finger is rude. So you start thinking, I'm out of options. And that's where we end up.
So therefore I have a pencil.
Point or the pencil.
Yes.
Which is actually a beneficial thing. We tend to feel more comfortable when we have an object in our hand. If you go to a networking event, even if you're just drinking water, being able to hold on to that is something that makes you feel comfortable. So I tell people, if they are more comfortable holding on to something, that's actually okay. But the presidential point's always a good one too.
I don't even know if I could do that. Like I know I'm not a good presidential candidate because I can't do that point. How's that?
Yeah,
it's qualified.
It's not natural. It is something that you have to be trained to do.
Okay, so what's next? Let's see. The etiquette I use every day.
Yes, and this is really everything. I have a little story to share on this one. Our local radio station does what they call the second date update. I think there's other ones like this. 2 people go on a date. After the date, one person thinks it's great, but the other person ghosts them and they never hear back from them. So that person who thought it was great calls the radio station, and the radio station calls the person who ghosted them to ask what went wrong. Well, in this one particular episode that stuck with me, the woman was called, the man had been ghosted, and she said, I remember him. He was really good looking, great conversation. I really liked him. But, you knew there was a but coming. She says, but I believe you can tell a lot by how a person drives, and I can't go out with someone who drives like him. And the radio show person said, well, did you feel unsafe? Her response was no. But when we got to the restaurant, he blew past a 70-year-old couple to take a closer parking spot. And I thought that was kind of rude. Then when we were leaving, someone motioned to let him through, but he didn't wave and acknowledge or say thank you. Then when we got to a red light, he pulled out his phone and started checking his email. He missed on a date. And then he missed when the light turned green, so that he was the only one who got through. He got on the freeway and drove the speed limit in the left lane, which meant there were cars trying to pass him. And this whole time, he was oblivious to how his actions were impacting others. She said, I can't go out with someone like that, who's so unaware of how others are being treated. And his response was, well, I didn't notice any of that. And that her thing was, that's it.
Exactly. So interesting, right? Kudos to her for being so aware of those items.
Yes.
Interesting. Maybe we all need to tune into that.
So that is the best example of how those little interactions impact the perception others have of you.
That's really great. Good story. Thank you for that one. And so do we have, these are the words.
Yes. So that's page 2. So what I would ask people listening to do is to take some time to really think and write down what it's going to look like for all of those aspects on there. Think when you talk about the communication, am I going to be an emoji user or am I not going to be an emoji user when I'm messaging people for business or when I'm sending out business emails? There's no right or wrong answer to that, but it's right or wrong for your image, your personal brand. As an etiquette consultant, I'm not an emoji user in emails. It just doesn't seem appropriate for that.
Unless it was maybe your logo or something.
Right.
That was like on point and on brand with you. And yeah, I could see that, because then it would discredit it might discredit you.
Right.
Great.
So I try to be cognizant of that kind of thing when I am doing my own communication.
Interesting. Well, do you have any other information about how people could potentially work with you if they were interested in, like, tell me a little bit, who's your target market now in that you've pivoted a bit? Tell me, if we were going to look for your target market, who would that be?
Right. What I work the most with are people that are interested in growing their, what I call executive presence, people who are looking to stand out a little bit more in the crowd. Okay. I work with a lot of people who have been promoted in their job and are trying to get to even the next level. A lot of times they feel a little uncomfortable in their new role, and so they seek my help for that. I also work with a lot of people who are just starting out and are looking to build, and they want to make sure they get a really strong foundation, which I love because I really think that's a great way to do it. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Absolutely. I am a prime example of someone who waited until their mid-40s for a career change. So I can totally get that. But I also believe that starting out and building a strong foundation will make it easier as you continue with your career.
Yeah, I could see as a college graduate gift of giving a gift of working with an etiquette to build your online executive presence, right?
Exactly.
Who am I going to be when I grow up? Just because you're graduating from college doesn't mean you're all grown up. So who am I going to be? What am I going to be? How am I going to present myself? What's my presence going to be? Am I going to adapt the black t-shirt and jeans because I'm in computer science and that's going to be my signature look? Like, just talking through all those things. And I bet, some kids just aren't aware of that at all.
No, and I do think it is good. I actually have a new student who just started, and the parents are doing it before he starts college. He just graduated from high school, and they contacted me to have me start working with him. We started just this past week, and I did introduce the idea of personal brand to him, and he really took to it because he's realizing, yes, as I'm starting out, I'm really starting to, as I said, build that foundation. And this will be something that skills for him to learn now that he can use for the rest of his life.
For sure. And also, as people, how many unemployed people do we have in the U.S. now? Is it still like at 40 million or something?
I don't even want to think about it, honestly, but I know it's really high.
And that's personal branding. And it's a really good time to take this time and learn that about yourself. It's time to take a pause. You've been given that as a gift. And so use it to your advantage and to come out ahead and thriving in the new normal, right? Right. Personal branding is one of those things that's really can be valuable. People can't take that away from you.
Right. They can't. And once you feel confident about it, it's amazing how much easier it is to go into an interview and know that you are projecting that image that you want to project. I don't know if you've seen High School Musical. You remember those?
Just not even long ago with my 13-year-old, we watched it.
So For people who aren't familiar with it, there is a jock and there is a brain that are the two main characters. And those are their brands. And those are the brands that were assigned by others. They are not how they feel about themselves. And by the end of the movie, they've taken control and they have decided to create their own paths and create their own personal brand. And they are able to actually get the leads in the school musical, which is what they want to do. So now they're seen as a little bit more well-rounded. They're not just the brain and the athlete, the jock. So I think that's actually a good illustration of how you can take control of your personal brand. It doesn't have to be the words and the phrases that others have assigned to you.
Exactly. That's great. Thank you so much. You've given us great insight, another spin on personal branding. The worksheet's going to be great for everybody to just circle some of those words and think about the words, that describe you, that you want to be known for, and then to make sure that you're projecting that into the world. So super great for my B2B solopreneurs. Take it all in stride. We're going to have more sessions on executive presence and personal branding. And thank you so much today. So we have all of your social media in the email that I sent out. You guys will see when we repurpose this session, you'll have other ways to get in touch with Dina. And any last words that you want to say to the audience?
Just that I hope that you do take control of your personal branding and that you use it to give that image that you want to project that. And I hope that you feel more confident now that you've taken the time to gain control of it as well. And if you want to reach out, if you have any questions, people can feel free to email me. It's dina@qcetiquette.com, or you can message me through my Queen City Etiquette Facebook page as well.
And I'm going to give you a compliment if I can, because I've done a few of these shows now, right? Your on stage presence is calm. The cadence of your speaking is slow and articulate, and you can understand it, and you don't look nervous. So she's the real deal, guys. You can see the difference. You can see her polished behavior, and it's shining. So congratulations on having that. You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, you guys, we have a guest coming up this week. Her name's Michelle, and she had an opportunity to meet Oprah. And her signature talk is about how she actually made Oprah cry. So Michelle is coming up on our next show. She's going to talk about pivoting, about the different things that happen, a little bit of her backstory and how she's channeled that into helping sales representatives close more business. So this is going to be a great one coming up. So thank you so much. Have a very great week, everybody. And I appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter, subscribe on the YouTube channel, or go ahead and like our Facebook page. We're here, we're live, and we're all over the place. So thanks so much. Take care and have a happy week.